common sense solutions should be put in place. I think that this bill has gotten a little bit away from the legislature. I've talked to several legislators, and I think a lot of them have second thoughts on what's going on now.
We strongly believe that the Wisconsin Act 168, known as the Sporting Heritage Bill, even in its revised form, is unacceptable. After speaking in Appleton, we thought we'd see more. While there are improvements in the latest plans for Peninsula, Newport, and to a lesser extent at Potawatomi, we must remember that people of all ages use these state parks year-round. They deserve to do so safely, on and off the trails. That is not possible under current implementation plans. Risk levels continue to be high. Even with revised recommendations from the NRB, we ask, at Peninsula Park, how can cross-country skiers, mountain bikers, and runners in the Door County Half Marathon and the Fall 50 Relay feel completely safe when archery hunting and trapping are allowed while they are in the park? At Potawatomi, how can you have gun hunting, possibly archery hunting, except in the traditional and accepted seasons? And trapping, you've got to be kidding. This is a small park. It's next to Sturgeon Bay, the county seat. There's a camp, an RV camp nearby, and there are residences on 3 sides of the park. So basically our stance is that the expansion of hunting and fishing and the introduction of trapping ultimately should be rescinded.
I plead with you to please not allow hunting and trapping in our state parks. I need and I want to feel safe so I may enjoy myself by hiking and photographing in our exquisite natural environment. Life is a short, precious gift, and I do not want to be maimed, or I don't want to be killed by a hunter or trapper and go down as a hunting or trapping accident statistic. Aside from the cruelty inflicted on our wildlife, you need to take into consideration the litigation and boycott costs to the DNR that will result from allowing hunting and trapping in our state parks. Please do not deprive and put in harm's way the majority of citizens who do not want hunting and trapping in our state parks from enjoying what they pay taxes for solely to satisfy a special interest group.
Very little citizen input and publicity was done before this Act 168 was passed. We are very much against the provisions of this Act 168 and concerned about safety issues. We want to see our High Cliff State Park exempt from hunting and trapping year-round. The 100-yard barrier of any hunters staying away from any trails will be almost impossible to enforce. It is unthinkable that hunters be allowed to endanger the lives of recreational park users who by far outnumber hunters. A state park is not for hunting. There is plenty of other public and private land available in our state for hunting. High Cliff State Park has homes on the fringe of the park escarpment. Many residents move to this area to enjoy the park and are daily users. Yearly and daily state park permits will decline and lead to much lost revenue for the state park system. We stayed away from the High Cliff State Park during the 9-day hunt in November. If this goes through for a 7.5-month hunt from mid-October through May, then recreational park enthusiasts will be denied safe use of the park during that time frame.
Safety remains an issue. A gunshot and the use of dogs to hunt on the horse trails will cause a horse to spook, race out of control, and throw the rider. The use of fireworks and chainsaws are not allowed in parks for safety reasons, so why would guns and traps? When looking at Wisconsin heritage, parks were given to us by our fathers and forefathers as refuges for wildlife. The department's request to approve the implementation of Act 68 is not the answer to raise the number of hunters in Wisconsin. And Wisconsin already has ample public land to support future education and mentoring programs. It is only a matter of time before people or pets are harmed by a stray bullet or a trap left in the woods.
I'm Carol Vanderwell. I represent Wisconsin State Parks. We heard of concerns about safety in the park. at the beginning of November and then attended the Appleton meeting. At the time we started this to see what could be done about Peninsula State Park. It rapidly grew to a state group that is working hard. With the petition that went online, in less than 2 days there was over 1,000 signatures. And then after that, just my daughter emailed me that in the last 4 hours there's over 500 signatures. We all know that we have inherited through years and years of money that has come from state people, from lands donated, like the 100-year-old man that lives across from me donated it and said, you know, his relatives would turn over in their grave if they knew that this was what was happening. People have a right to know. Lawmakers snuck in an amendment without the public knowing.
A weasel box is basically a shoebox with a little trap inside it, whether it's a rat trap or a #1 long spring. The weasel goes in the inch and a half hole, lands on the trap, he's dead. Very safe to pets and people. I mean, only my fingers are the only thing that's going to get caught in there. Really, that's all I have. If you think of trapping in state parks as doing animal damage control, we trap in state parks now. It's just a little secret nobody knows about. You know, if Door County parks have too many raccoons in the middle of the summer and they're taking care of the people's garbage and their coolers and everything else, they call a trapper in and he's paid to get rid of the raccoons. If it's muskrats at Buckhorn State Park or beaver at some other state park, it gets taken care of now.
My name is Catherine. I am a geologist. I've spent 30 years of my life in Wisconsin, but I'm back after 6 years in Alaska, where I take my Alaskan Husky Malamutes out walking through the mountains all the time. They don't like mushing much. And one year I heard an awful scream and one of my dogs was caught in a leg trap. And I am an off-season user. When it's 20 below and it's January, that's when I'm out there. That's the time of year I like. And I was alone and I couldn't get the trap off and the dog was tearing at his leg and it was an awful situation. I eventually disconnected the trap from what was staked in the ground and I dragged him as far as I could, but eventually I had to abandon the dog and run for help because I couldn't make it back to the trailhead. I don't stick to the designated areas. And there are laws in Alaska that say 100 yards off the trail too. But I guess I'm not that responsible a dog owner. My dogs run around. When I eventually went and talked to people about it, they said, well, this is what you had to do to get him out of the trap. You had to stand like this. And another woman got her dog caught in a conibear. And she was with 4 other people, luckily. She says it took all 4 of them to, you know, get the dog out, keep it from being crushed. But I went to the railroad, because that's where this trap was hidden, by the railroad. And they said, well, you know, first thing you do, Catherine, is you get out your Leatherman. I'm from the lower 48. I don't carry a Leatherman in my pocket when I'm walking my dogs. And they said, and then, you know, if you get in a conibear, you take the leash and you do this and you do that. And they showed me all these ways you can get out of all these different traps if, you know, you have that kind of education, that kind of calm frame of mind, those tools, and etc. I think that there really needs to be education, you know. I mean, if I'm going to be going into a no-man's zone, because when I see up there on the map it says closed, you know, to trap, or no, this part is open, you know, to trapping, that means to me that's closed. Or else it's like I'm going in there at my own risk. If I'm going in there at my own risk, other people are too, and they might want to know, you know, this is what you're going to have to do if your dog is caught in a trap, because it's really a painful and awful thing.
The Act 168 is a complete reversal of the past. So what is the difference between the state forests and the state parks? Hunters assume the risk associated with firearms to enjoy their sport. Now trail users are being asked to assume that risk. How great is the risk? As examples, the Southern Kettle Moraine State Forest is 22,000 acres with 63 miles of ski trails. Mirror Lake State Park is 2,200 acres with 17 miles of ski trails. The trail systems in the state forest are relatively small footprints in a vast area. At Mirror Lake, the trails are like an explosion in a spaghetti factory. Given the range of firearms, I cannot see, other than in a few isolated areas, how one can be discharged without crossing a trail. This is true of most other parks I've looked at as well. In the linear parks, shooting is of necessity parallel to the trail. Deviation of even a degree sends around in the direction of trail traffic. Much has been said about sharing the parks with hunters. From what I've read, 97% of state lands are open for hunting now. That's a lot of sharing. Isn't there going to be a place somewhere in our state for people who don't want to assume the risk associated with firearms?
I'm Jeffrey Bayless from the town of Cross Plains. I'm a hunter. My buck tested negative for CWD. Thank you, DNR. I'm also a user of the state parks and trail system. I oppose the implementation of Act 168. State parks are places where the public can share the beauty, the natural resources of Wisconsin in a non-consumptive manner. State forests are to be used in a consumptive manner. Allowing general hunting in the parks is the opposite of that philosophy and purpose. I would like to remind you that well over 5 million of the 5.7 million residents of the state of Wisconsin did not purchase a hunting license, yet they are also potential users of the state park. A few thousand attendees of Conservation Congress meetings does not represent even the 600,000 people who bought a hunting license. State parks are a family destination where families go to camp, hike, fish, and view wildlife. These parks are where many children are introduced to the natural world for the first time. This appreciation of the outdoors and the natural world is an important attribute for recruiting future hunters. But the public response to allowing general hunting in state parks is likely to be a decline in their recreational use, including family use. Hunting alters the behavior of the hunted populations. State parks are great places to view wildlife precisely because wildlife is not hunted in parks. Hunting reduces the number of animals and alters the behavior of the survivors and other animal species. Flight distances go up, animals become more nocturnal in their habits, and they generally avoid humans. Allowing hunting in parks will reduce the quality of the experience for visitors attracted by the opportunity to view wildlife. I do not know who requested Act 168, but it is my personal experience that it does not represent the wishes of all hunters. I have a number of friends and acquaintances who are also hunters. Not a single one of them thinks this act is a good idea. Indeed, I think it will have the consequence of fueling a public antipathy to hunting in general. Thank you for your time.
Most people who visit our parks are hiking, picnicking, snowshoeing, bird watching, taking pictures, getting away from it all, getting exercise, and playing with their children and their grandchildren. Gun hunting is not compatible with the high public use. Much of the perimeter of the park has homes that border right up to the property lines. I personally believe Act 168 opening up the state parks to gun hunting has increased the anti-hunting sentiment. I hope that's not what they intended and they still have the opportunity to fix this. Thank you.